Hi, this is the show that answers the questions that expats, nomads, and full-time travelers living across the globe ask themselves every day. These insights and secrets are shared when we interview experts and authors from across the globe. Hello, Nomadic Diaries, and thank you everyone for listening. My name is Doreen Cumberford, and it's my pleasure to introduce my esteemed guest today, Syed Zafar. Syed has a very super resume and background in intercultural relationships. He has actually presented more than 600 programs on intercultural communication at corporations, universities, not-for-profit organizations all over the world, too many countries to actually name. And he's conducted these programs for ExxonMobil for 25 years. Born in Pakistan before coming to the US in 82, and has incredible grace and ease in talking about and teaching people culture. Welcome today, Syed. It is my pleasure to have you here because you're so well-traveled and well-cultured and well-versed in this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Doreen, for inviting me. It's a real pleasure. I know we scheduled that a few months ago, and finally the day is here. So
yeah,
I'm excited. And again, thanks a lot for considering me for your podcast.
Oh, I'm so happy that you granted my wish. Can you introduce yourself a little bit and share how being who you are, the unique unrepeatable miracle that you are, how that has given you your insight into understanding other cultures and overseas challenges, please?
Got it, Doreen. So growing up in Pakistan, I did not know there was such thing as cultural difference because I never really left the country, did not have those means to travel as I was growing up. So in order to look for better jobs, to help my family, my siblings, with all the financial needs, I left the country at age 20 for Saudi Arabia. And I was in a real shock. I did not know they were called cultural differences. I felt like the people in Saudi Arabia were living very differently and very different expectations compared to what I was dealing with in Pakistan. I still didn't know the language, didn't know the lingo, what it is, and what does it really mean. So I worked there for 4 years, and then I decided again to get a better education, to get better jobs. I never thought of cultural difference to be reason to travel. It was more basic to financial security and for my extended family, my parents and my siblings. So when I got to the United States, that was, as you mentioned, 1982, and I was 24 years old. And I still didn't have any idea what cultural differences were. Mm-hmm. However, now I notice, compared to Saudi Arabia, where everything was closed, you were limited what you can see, what you can say, who you can interact with, compared to where I was coming from. And now jumping into the United States, it was just the other end for me, where everything was open. You can say whatever you want to say. You can wear whatever you want to wear. You can eat whatever you want to eat. In Saudi Arabia, during the month of Ramadan, if they find you eating during the day, they put you in jail.
Yes.
Locked up for the rest of the month. So they can control when you can or cannot eat. Even I still remember during shopping in the evening, everyone leaves for the mosque for prayer, and they leave the shops completely open, and they just all disappear for 30 minutes. If you are standing there, they put you in vans and they drop you at the mosque. You're supposed to be.
Oh, really?
You should not be standing on the side of the road waiting for the shopkeeper to come back. So coming from those kinds of environment, it was a whole different experience.
Yes, I did not know that because that practice was not in vogue when I was in Saudi Arabia.
What year were you there?
I arrived in 95, and you were there.
95.
You were there in late 70s.
78 to 82.
So in 78, I was in Dubai, and I thought, I know the Middle East. Going back to Saudi Arabia, no problem. Wrong.
Yeah. Yes. I still remember those days. There were streets where
Yes.
only women can shop.
Yes.
So men were not allowed. And then
Yes.
if a woman takes her hijab, the cover, the black, up over her head,
Yeah.
and there were men with long beards, with long sticks. They take
Yes.
their sticks and flip the cover over their faces.
Wow.
That was happening.
Wow.
Me and my father were about to get arrested as well because they said we took a picture of a building, which happens to be the government building, but there
Uh-huh.
was no sign not to take pictures.
Yes. Yes.
So I had
Yeah.
all kinds of interesting experiences. Oh, talking about experiences, recently in Toastmasters, I gave a talk on that. Is Policemen put me in jail for 3 days, stating that I have crossed the red signal traffic light. However, later on, I was able to be released within a few hours. But that's what happened. They don't give you a ticket; they just put you in jail. But that's back in 1980.
Yes.
So I don't know how they do that
Yeah.
today.
Well, and I was there in a different era, and even now I have friends who are still there, and we still have reunions back there. But the fact is, it's so much. It has morphed and changed.
Yes,
They
it is changing.
are doing their best to juggle modernity with their culture, their beliefs,
Correct.
and their religion, and
Correct.
so it's very different. Well, that's fascinating. So that's a great example of the answer to the next question, actually, because a lot of people who listen to this podcast may be people that are considering launching to go overseas, who have never lived overseas before, or they're having some rumble where they are in their overseas endeavors. But can you tell us, just for the audience benefit, why is it essential that those of us who live and move in international arenas, why is it important to understand and appreciate the cultural differences, please?
Yeah. See, the thing is, if we do not appreciate them or do not know they exist, we're going to have trouble after trouble, problem after problem, because we are coming from our world where we saw things working one way, and now we are not in that environment anymore. We will be so frustrated because no one teaches us there is such thing as culture. No one told me in Pakistan you have certain cultural value. We think the way we work, the way we think, this is the normal, natural way, and everyone has the same common sense. That's why in my book that you mentioned earlier, one of the chapter at the beginning is called "We Don't Have a Culture," because when I start teaching Americans about the cultural differences, they say we don't have a culture. All these other peoples do. Just tell them to behave like us, and everything is going to be fine. Now that works perfectly all right if you are in the United States and you are getting immigrants. But when you show up in another country, the country doesn't know you are from a different culture. They think everyone in the world live like them.
Exactly.
So if you don't appreciate them, don't know them, we will be just so frustrated, so mad. Why don't these people just do people like back home? Everything is going to be just fine. So that's why we have to put an effort to know if we choose to be successful, unless we may go to a country where they have created for example, in Mexico or somewhere, South America, a little island.
An enclave.
Yes, enclave. And you just never leave that little place.
And you stay in the cultural bubble. Yes.
Exactly.
I'm constantly trying. I mean, I benefit from that. I appreciate it. I see it. I understand it. But I'm constantly trying to fight my way out of it.
Yeah. So in Saudi Arabia, when I was there were large oil companies from US, European countries were there, but they were all in a compound near Tehran called Aramco compound.
That's where I lived.
Inside, yes. Inside, women can drive, they can drink alcohol, they can even watch a movie.
Yes.
The rest of us outside, none of those things were available. On the top, even the Times and Newsweek magazine, you get it. Half of the pictures in the magazine had black ink. Someone really sat down with a black marker and covered the legs or the arms or all that stuff. So that was interesting.
My husband had ordered me for Christmas or birthday a subscription to Oprah magazine, and when it showed up, all the V-necks and the swimsuit pages were torn out, and so you'd read an article and you'd go to page 64. Oh, there's no page 64. There must have been a really inappropriate picture there. So
you have a long history of traveling and interacting with other cultures. So
Yes. But this is how we learn.
Yeah.
Tell me about some of the attributes. What do you think is important to build cultural relationships? What sort of, say, attributes?
Correct.
Do you talk about the most?
Yeah. So there are some basic, for example, when executives from other countries come to work here, and I'm normally as their cultural trainer, we give them a assessment where we find out where they are in different characteristics that can be helpful when you're in a new culture. For example, open-mindedness.
Yes.
If we are very narrow-minded and we want to be staying within our little space, then it's going to be very hard for us when we travel to another culture, because there we have to open our mind to allow their experiences. So open-mindedness may be one of them. The other one, in personal or in corporate life, resiliency. Do I quickly get frustrated and give up? Because when I'm in a new environment, things are not going to work out exactly as expected, because these people have different ways of doing things. So if I'm resilient, I don't give up right away. I keep trying and keep doing different ways of doing things. Learning different ways will be helpful. Tolerance for ambiguity.
Yes.
How tolerant I am if I fully don't comprehend the situation. Because again, if I'm out of my environment, out of my surrounding, out of my culture, everything is not going to be crystal clear all the time. I will have to deal with ambiguity. So how tolerant am I? So those are some of the characteristics then you can develop.
How would you teach people who are especially US or Western citizens moving into another culture? How do you prepare them for ambiguity?
So you cannot really isolate just ambiguity. You have to do the full picture. And in the full picture, lots of things would be there. But once you have more information, more knowledge, your ambiguity would be reduced. And then one of the things would be the expectations. Maybe they're not tolerant for ambiguity because they didn't expect ambiguity. So setting expectations would be one thing. Knowing your own culture, having a self-awareness of the culture I have, and then recognizing the culture I'm going to. In addition to that, having some basic knowledge, what we call the culture general knowledge about cultural differences. If I have that information, for example, our perceptions tend to differ very much when we go across cultures. I'm running around with my glasses. I think the world is this color, because that's my perception all my life and I believe in it. And then I go to another culture, people have different lenses.
Yes.
There are several books people can read that develop the culture general knowledge for them, that makes them understand what is culture, what is perception, how intercultural communication differs. And then once you have that, then you start looking into what are some of the major cultural differences. For example, individualism versus collectivism.
Yes.
And then Hofstede's book, where he talks about high context versus low context. Talks about power distance. And then slowly, time differences, how people treat time differently. Once you have some of those basic concepts and ideas in your head, once your expectations are right, once you know how different you are compared to the other cultures, and finally, before getting to the culture, have you read about that culture?
Hold those up a second, will you?
I have about 50, 60 of them. So then you need to know what culture you are dealing with. So once once I have the basic idea, then I need to really learn how these people think and work differently. For example, one of the Scandinavian country, Norway, I was going for doing some work there related to culture. I found out really weird things. For example, it is allowed for school or college students to have jokes with their professors when they graduate.
Mm.
In the US, they take the toilet paper and they throw up on the trees.
Yes.
I knew about that. I thought that was pretty weird. But having a pranks with your professor. So I think knowledge really helps to reduce the ambiguity.
Yes. Yes.
And the expectations.
Yeah. And it prepares you. When
Yes.
your expectations are managed,
Yes.
and you have a level of knowledge that is reasonable, you have more comfort, and then therefore I think you feel more settled and prepared. People ask me a lot, well, what's the difference between a tourist and a traveler and
Yeah.
expat? I get asked that all the time. How should I answer that question?
So as a matter of fact, in a Facebook, there's an actual group called Traveler Not Tourists.
Yes.
So I think I never knew they were using these words for distinction, but this is what I understand. Tourist goes back to, as you may remember, in the 70s, some books and movies were out there where they talk about the ugly American.
Yes.
And that was the concept born, and I think that concepts were born from tourists. So tourist means, yes, I'm in another country, but I expect everything to work just like back home. As a matter of fact, I am at my home. It just happens to be another country.
Yes.
And not preparing yourself, you put your plug into the socket and everything burned down because you didn't bother to learn. The country you are going doesn't have 110, it has 220.
Yes.
Basic stuff. Why these people are driving on the wrong side of the road? They're not driving wrong side of the road. They are driving other side of the road.
Right.
Both sides are equally valid, considering where you are in the world.
Yes.
So I think that's where the idea came. And you talked about earlier, living into your little bubble. Those would be the tourists. And those people who say, today's Monday, this must be Paris. Tomorrow is Tuesday, that must be Frankfurt. And you cover 5, 6, 7 countries in 7 to 10 days.
Yes.
Tell people, I have been to all those countries.
Yeah.
Versus going to one place, staying there for a few days, experiencing it, going down, taking it in, learn few words of the language before you get there, read few books. For example, you're going to UAE. You have read this one. You have read, there's several other. There's a called Culture Shock UAE.
Yes.
You have talked to a few people who have gone to that place and build that knowledge. For example, in UAE, I was shocked. I'm standing in a long line. Women come all the way to the front and they go and they bypass the whole line. That was 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It's completely okay for women to bypass the long line and go up front. This is one of the privileges women have.
Wow.
In that culture.
Yes.
And I could be standing there frustrated. Why? But that's how the culture works there.
Exactly. That's how life is. And it's just a matter of accepting it. For some of our people who may be listening, who are interested in being nomadic, and they're considering, they're preparing to launch themselves as nomads, how would you tell them to notice that switch from being a tourist to being a traveler? Because for me, it's a definite switch. It's a switch sort of in my head. It's like, okay, I'm here for 3 months. I can take this easy. I don't need to run around and see everything in 1 week. What kind of advice would you give them?
Correct. So switching from tourist to traveler, I think, first of all, you'll have to visit few places a few times before that switch may come. It may not be obvious coming right away. especially you're going to run out of those touristy places after a month.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to stay there for, let's say, 3-4 months, even 3-4 months, you may still be in a honeymoon phase.
Yes.
In order to be, so when you say nomadic stay 1 to 3 years in a place or 1 to 3 months in a place. What is the official definition of nomadic? Because it normally means you go from places to places. Do you put some boundaries around how long it needs to be?
Well, I've talked to people from every length of time, to every country, to every individual. And now we're really trying to help craft people have a more mindful experience of why are you traveling. And that's what I like to say about Nomadic Diaries. It's not about the where, the who, or the what. It's or the how. We're not going to teach you how to save points up and how to book cruises. We're going to help you find the purpose and the meaningful change so that you have some sort of a transformation.
If we mean by nomadic, the original nomadic tribes, they really did not have any homes, right? Their home was everything is loaded up. You travel, and that's where you have the food available to you, the animal or the and then you stay there, and then you put everything back on your horses or your carts or on your back, and you go and live somewhere else. Today, we are not talking, we're using the word nomadic, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, I do have a passport, I do have a country. Yes. I try to go maybe live in one country 6 months, another country 6 months, another country 6 months, or 1 or 2 year or 3 year. Mm-hmm. So I think you have to exhaust the honeymoon. Normally, I'm sure you have seen the honeymoon cycle. Oh, yes. Honeymoon, when you go to a new place, can last anywhere from 3 months to a year. So you may not be fully capable of becoming the full nomadic, getting comfortable with that place, because all days I am on a big, huge land, and there are a few things that are different in land. I'm not dealing with the whole culture. My nomadic tribe is my tribe. So my culture in nomadic tribe stays with me all the time. Mm-hmm. I'm still interacting with the same people, no matter where I am, versus here, we have life so sophisticated, how reliant Wi-Fi is maybe different. Yes. Will I be getting water running all the time? Or there are many countries, water may not be running all the time. Yeah. There may not be any concept of a hot water. So it depends where I choose to go as a nomadic. Can I rely on electricity running 24/7? Because we have so many expectations, so many needs, and the Wi-Fi is not strong enough, or it's not working right. Forget about the basic needs. They don't make the bread the right way. What's wrong with them? So I think the knowledge and information, and then how often you switch countries, it would take you a while. Yes. Yeah. It's not going to be, first thing is expectations. Don't think you're just going to be comfortable. Unless some people naturally have those tendencies. Yes. For them, like you are. You have gone to enough places. I can throw you somewhere in the world, and you're going to be fine in a week. You'll figure out how to manage it. But for the rest of us, it depends how many times you have gone through that process, and how many actual cells you built in your brain to help you to deal with those unique situations. Yes, definitely you have to work up to adaptability, I think, to be really good at it. I think age is also a factor, though, and the older you get, maybe the less flexible we are in many ways, physically, emotionally. One of the things that I learned, though, is to spend a lot of time just noticing, just notice, and not to make any commentary or any comments that I know anything about a country, because I've been here in Mexico now for almost 18 months, and the longer I'm here, the less I understand.
And
Yes.
that's not
Yes.
just because it's not just because of the language barrier, which I'm
Yeah.
still working on, but I really think in order to be a true interculturalist, it's important just to use your mind, body, spirit, and all these parts of ourselves to align with where you are. And that can take, and as a yoga practitioner and teacher, I know you appreciate that side of life again.
Correct.
So how does that affect our intercultural settling? Do you think if you go somewhere and you keep up your regular yoga practice, or you do a different yoga practice, or you do your normal exercises, does that make a difference?
Yeah, I think keeping some kind of a routine, because there are several pieces of our psyche. In order to take care of ourselves, we need to decide what nutrition to have. So
Yes.
proper nutrition is good. Nutrition can change our mood and can affect our stress level. All kinds of things can happen. So nutrition is the one area, and then you have body exercise side. Maybe for you, walking and running may work, or maybe yoga will work, or Tai Chi. Whatever your way is to move your body, you have to take care of that piece, no matter where you are. If you're going to be there for a while, if you're there for a week, 2 weeks, that's a different situation.
Yes.
You need to make sure you get enough sleep, because that can impact your mood. You can be all day grouchy if you don't have. Recently, I was reading, they say more than 9 hours, you have a problem. Less than 7 hours is not enough. So somewhere between 7 to 9, the research keeps changing. It used to be it's okay to sleep more than 9 hours, but now they say if you're sleeping more than 9 hours, you got some psychological problems. That's going too far. So somewhere between 7 to 9, and then comes to stress. Of course, right nutrition, right exercise, right sleep is going to help with your stress and social connections. If you're in a new place and you don't know anyone, do you still have friends and relatives or children or parents somewhere else you're connected with? So you have your social circle. And then whatever amount of stress you're dealing with, what methods do you have to dealing with that? As we know, meditation, sitting quietly and focus on our breathing is one way to lower our stress level. And however, you cannot do that in a vacuum. You have to take care of nutrition, exercise, sleep, social interactions. And then, are you there for work? You have a work stress. You need to have a way to reduce your stress.
What is your...
Yes, all that would help, because if your personality, your mind is sound, your body is working on an optimum level, then your tolerance to ambiguity would be better. You will be able to face more ambiguity easily because you have strength. Now, when you were talking about you have been there for a year and a half, and you still recognize, is not fully understood. I think that is the layers. You peel the first layer, you think you got it.
Yeah.
And then another layer comes. Yeah. And you also mentioned observe. So there is in intercultural communication, there is a rule called the DIE rule, D-I-E. That doesn't mean dead die, but it's a good one acronym to remember. So when you are in a new environment, new situation, first is D. Instead of jumping into conclusions and judgment, you stay on description.
Yes.
So you describe the situation, without giving any judgment, which is very hard for us. Our first thing is to just jump into the conclusion. Once you have stayed and described for a few nanoseconds, because everything happens in our head so fast, then you move into interpret. That's where you come up with I for interpret, where you come up with, it could be this, it could be that. I don't know, you saw the movie Gods Must Be Crazy.
Yes. One. My favorite.
And then, correct, because they live in an area where there is no liquid available. Yeah. And this guy on a plane throw the bottle down, and they are all dealing with this bottle like it's some weird thing up from the sky. They don't know what to do with it. So they're interpreting it all different functions except the liquid part.
Exactly.
And they are using it to smooth things out. The old man starts using it for whistling.
Yes.
And then they are spinning it. And they are doing all kinds of things. Those are the interpretations, various interpretations, what it could be. Of course, sooner or later, in order to move on, you have to have a judgment. And that's where the E comes in for evaluate.
Mm-hmm.
So you were very right, sitting back and soaking it in. In order, Doreen, to do that, I guess you don't have a lot of worries. You can go anywhere as a nomad. You have enough money in your pocket. You're not working, or you are thinking of nomad. These people are doing full-time jobs.
Other people still have a business and they want to travel with that business. And so they are very curious about learning. I had another guest on, and that's what she does, is she really helps people who have a business how to pack up your business and take your business on the road, because that's a different skill set.
Yeah. And the other one may be because the COVID opened those floodgates, that the concept, you don't have to be physically in a certain place to work.
Yes.
You can be virtual anywhere in the world and can still do your job. My son works in Colorado and he comes here and he's on his bed. He's holding his laptop over his head. As far as his company is concerned, he is seriously working because he's in his pajamas and he hasn't combed his hair, he hasn't washed his face, brushed his teeth, but he's on this very important phone call with some big boss. And that's perfectly all right. That's not what I grew up with. That's not what we did in Exxon. We wore tie, we wore suits, and we had to be physically present.
Yes.
Hair's combed and well behaved. You know?
My husband, when we came back from Saudi Arabia, he signed up as a consultant for Aramco in Houston, but our home was actually in Washington. So he was commuting between Houston and Washington. And he kept explaining to them that he didn't really need to be in the office because he didn't talk to many people, especially being an introvert. He was, project management, and he had everything online. And this is 2014, 10 years ago. And so I say he was one of the pioneers in this field, because he was just really like a battering ram. Like, you don't need to be in the office. This is unnecessary. This is, I could do probably 80% of the job from home, but they were not willing. There was just no flexibility.
Large companies are like that in general.
Yes.
However, having said that, we have been at ExxonMobil the year 2000 when Exxon merged with Mobil. I was part of that initiative team where we helped our employees how to interact with other employees who are not in our building. Because we decided to, in order to lower the cost of employee labor costs, we reduced the workforce in the US, in England, in Japan, and few in Europe. And we start having offices in Brazil and in Thailand and in Malaysia, in some of those new Eastern European countries. And these people had no idea how to work with these people who are not physically there. So the skills people have been in corporate world are learning how to work virtually. Even they do go to the office from their home and they have to be in their office. But half of their people they are working with now last, I would say,
all of
25 years is work virtually. So we had to teach them cultural differences. We had to teach them time differences. And the list go, and how to use these online tools. At those days, you can only have a phone call. That's all there was. Maybe one or two video, not very many. But today we have plethora of tools that we can pretty much simulate working face to face.
Yes, exactly. So our world has changed so rapidly and so quickly, and we're really seeing particularly in the West and the US, people I say it's like almost people have let the gates open and we're just really exploring, which is very exciting. And I consider those people some of the luckiest people in the world that at this
Yeah.
point in their lives, they can go off and have such an experience of life. There's one more question or one more subject I would like to tackle briefly before we wrap this up with a bow. And that is, tell me in layman's terms, what is cultural intelligence and why do we need it?
So cultural intelligence word got coined pretty recently. It's not a very old word.
Yes.
And it kind of encompasses everything we even talked earlier about. So cultural intelligence means exactly what not to do, what you were saying earlier, is to not to stay in your bubble. Cultural intelligence is to have the abilities and the tools and the understanding to being able to interact with the culture, not changing your behavior, not changing your value system. You keep your value system intact. However, you change your tactics so you can be understood and you can work with people who you know are culturally different from you. For example, you happen to be in a place where people are very indirect in their communication, and you came from Dutch or German or American, and you grew up with everything direct.
Yes.
Now you have learned the tools to be knowing that I'm direct, but I'm going to hold off because I know if I'm direct, their impact to them would be not thanking me to be direct.
Yes.
They would be mad. They feel like they are insulted. They feel like I'm very insensitive. So knowing the difference and having my attitude or my behavior, my way of interacting modified to deal with that situation, I have the cultural intelligence in that one particular thing. But at the end, self-awareness, knowing your own cultures. For example, if you happen to be in the United States, there are some of the books you can read, American Ways, Living in the USA, American Cultural Patterns. If most Americans read these books, they would be very, very surprised, all the stuff in these books. But these two books are often given to international students to know what the US is like. And this one, American Cultural Patterns, is a lot more serious, is serious, but this is very easy reads. So if I'm an American and I want to go to other countries, I will take it pretty seriously, learn about the American culture, because I am acting American culture, but I don't know what the heck it is.
Yeah.
Once I have that, then I need to go to the next step, learn intercultural communication.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's very helpful. That helps people understand that it is the nitty-gritty, day-to-day, functional aspects of travel that we are trying to educate people in becoming just a little bit more fluent in humanity. I call it global-heartedness. It's like global-hearted thinking, global-hearted feeling, and global-hearted action. It's a combination of all of these, and it requires all of us to get better. So I'm very, very grateful for your fabulous energy and your skills in explaining this in simple layman's terms that we can all understand. That was very helpful. Just in closing, I would like to ask you, do you have any advice for global travelers who are eager to understand their enhancement? You've shared lots of books, which is lovely.
Yeah.
And do you have one piece of advice that is your speciality?
Okay. I just thought of this right second ago before you were saying that. And there could be hundreds of things to mention at this point. There is no such one thing, but what came to me is one of my articles in the book is Revise the Golden Rule. So we grew up with the idea of golden rule. Most of the religions have it, which simply says, I need to treat you the way I want to be treated.
Yes.
However, this only works if everyone had the same idea?
Exactly.
How do you need to be treated? So the idea is to move from golden rule to the platinum rule.
Oh.
Treat you the way you want to be treated. Now that requires an extra burden. I have to go and learn how would you like to be treated, because I only know how I like to be treated.
Yes. Very wise. I love that.
It's a shift. It's a paradigm shift.
It's huge shift.
Yes.
It's huge.
So that just came to my mind as at the end when you were saying that. So that doesn't mean this is the only thing. There are hundreds of millions of other things. All those things we talked about: open-mindedness, curiosity, resilience, tolerance for ambiguity, relationship building. Because if you are American, you grew up with the task orientation, task, action. Relationship is less important. But as you know, in Mexico, South America in general, Asia, Africa, Middle East, relationship takes precedence.
It's paramount. Yes. Yeah. Well, you've really taken us on a wonderful journey today throughout interculturalism by, talking about all these things and teaching us about description, interpret, and then evaluate. And then
you're a good learner.
And then you have encouraged us not to stay in our bubble, to change our tactics, to take care of ourselves, and to practice self-awareness and build our practices and take our practices with us. You have also helped us by, that's a brilliant solution, the platinum rule, is to go above and beyond the golden rule. So thank you so much, Syed. This has just been a fabulous journey, and I am absolutely certain that our listeners will benefit from this. We will include all of your links in the show notes.
Okay.
So thank you, listeners. Thank you for tuning in today. Please, would you share or subscribe or comment? And we appreciate having you today in the room, Syed. It's just like you're here in Mexico.
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for taking time to have a discussion and sharing. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.